To discuss this further, let's bring in tech journalist Chris Stoker-Walker. Welcome back to the programme, Chris. Now, this $18 billion agreement is being compared to the landmark big tobacco settlements of the 90s, with 30% of the payout contingent on rivals like TikTok and YouTube making similar changes. Does this finally force an industry-wide safety overhaul?
I think we have to wait and see exactly what TikTok and YouTube are going to do in response. And certainly Meta is ramping up the pressure on both of them, as well as making part of their agreement contingent on both of these platforms following in their footsteps. They're also waging a PR war against them with full-page adverts in newspapers like the New York Times, the Washington Post, and others appearing on newsstands this morning as the United States starts to wake up. But it is, I think, probably a lucky one for Meta to actually get away with this somewhat, because the numbers involved here are comparatively small in comparison to what they might have been facing. You know, the people who were taking this lawsuit to Meta in the first instance were looking for something like $200 billion of damages. Meta themselves said they might have been on the hook for 1.5 trillion. And obviously there are significant changes to the platforms, but in terms of the monetary stuff, this is just about a third of a year's profit for Meta in the first instance.
So when can we actually start seeing some of these changes?
It seems like these are going to be put in place relatively quickly, particularly in the United States as part of this, and that is really contingent on that deal being made. What is interesting is I've spoken to Meta's press office in the last 24 hours after this judgment. They say that this is only applicable in the United States, that this does not necessarily mean worldwide these things will be changing, but I imagine that a lot of the pressure will be coming from governments outside of the United States to say, well, if you can do it for these number of states that have agreed to this deal, and not all US states have, by the way. Florida's Attorney General has said that he thinks that the fine is peanuts, and he looks forward, he says, to seeing Meta in court in his own case. Then why can't you do it elsewhere around the world as well?
Right, and how easily can these safeguards be bypassed by minors?
One of the realities is that we've seen minors basically getting past these sorts of age checks, which is how these sorts of things would be implemented. Age verification, which is very familiar to people in the European Union, in the United Kingdom, following the Online Safety Act and the requirement for age verification there, and also in Australia, where there's been a teen social media ban in place now for many months, through those kind of everyday age checks. And as we've seen from Australia, they're incredibly easy to bypass. There was a small blip of around about 2 or 3 weeks when young people basically stopped using social media in Australia, but the reality is through VPNs, through other workarounds, including falsifying information, these things are very easy to get around. So I don't imagine that actually the end user experience will stick all that much for everyday people in these instances.
Interesting analysis there. Chris Stoker-Walker, thank you very much.